Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Political party preferences shifting. What could it mean for the midterm elections later this year? And what could it mean for President Biden's White House? A new study shows that a fourth shot of the vaccine can't keep people from being infected with Omicron. This as Europe implements some of the most sweeping vaccine mandates and fines. A winter snowstorm heads up the east coast of the U.S. into Canada, dumping more than 2 feet of snow in some areas and leaving flights canceled and motorists stranded. The chief executives of major U.S. passenger and cargo carriers warn of an impending aviation crisis in less than 36 hours. That's when AT&T and Verizon are set to deploy a new 5G service. A new report from Gallup shows that Republicans gained a large number of voters in 2021. What could it mean for the upcoming midterms and for President Biden? NTD's Jessica Beatty takes a look.
The midterm elections are some 10 months away. All seats in the House and at least 34 seats in the Senate will be up for election. Republicans could take control of the House, Senate, or both. And Republican control could mean worries for the Biden White House. Republican Representative Bob Gibbs has been pushing to impeach President Biden since September over the Afghanistan pullout. Others want to launch investigations. Targets include the president's son Hunter Biden, the administration's handling of supply chain issues, and vaccine mandates. The White House has already taken small steps that will help shield it from aggressive probes, including boosting its legal counsel's office to help with fallout from the Afghanistan pullout, and the hiring of a special advisor, former New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, to oversee implementation of the $1 trillion infrastructure law, which Republicans would likely scrutinize. Gallup surveys show that Republicans gained a large number of voters in 2021. Although the year started out with more voters identifying as Democrat, by the end of the year, 47% identified as Republican or leaning Republican, compared to 42% who identified as Democrat or leaning Democrat. The rest were independent. The last time Republicans held a 5-point advantage was in 1995. Gallup attributes the drop in Democratic support to plunging approval ratings for President Biden. Independents still comprise the largest group of voters in the country, whether they lean toward a party or not. And like the Gallup surveys, recent polls on the generic congressional vote show a shift in support, with Republicans now slightly ahead. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
An abortion ban that went into effect in Texas last September will remain for the foreseeable future after abortion clinics challenging the law met a small defeat in appeals court. A federal appeals court sent the case to the Texas Supreme Court. The move delays any challenge to the law known as the Texas Heartbeat Act. The abortion ban applies after a heartbeat is detected unless a medical emergency exists. A heartbeat is usually detected around 6 weeks after conception. An appeals court judge in the case wrote that her decision was not about the merits of the abortion ban, but about a judicial procedure. A dissenting judge on the case says the decision delays justice and is at conflict with the U.S. Supreme Court. Currently, there is no timetable for when the state Supreme Court might take up the case. A winter snowstorm heading up the east coast of the United States into Canada on Monday dumped more than 2 feet of snow in some areas, grounding planes and stranding motorists. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
In Hidden Valley, Pennsylvania, some residents report that they are under more than a foot of snow. More than 4,200 flights in the United States were canceled or delayed on Monday, according to FlightAware. And Power Outage US says nearly 90,000 homes and businesses between Georgia and Maine were without electricity. In the eastern United States, officials urged residents to stay off snowy roads. Ashtabula, Ohio, on Lake Erie, recorded 27 inches of snow, according to the National Weather Service, while parts of New York State, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina received more than 20 inches. Atlanta saw its first snow in 4 years, according to the National Weather Service, and some regions in North Carolina had record snowfalls. As the storm swept north, northern Maine and New Hampshire were still due for another 2 to 4 inches of ice and snow Monday evening. Blustery conditions are predicted across much of the region into Tuesday. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
An Israeli study looks at how a fourth shot of the vaccine affects a person's defenses against Omicron. It found that the fourth shot is less effective against the Omicron variant. And a virologist overseas expects COVID to enter a new phase. That's because a lot of people have immunity thanks to vaccines and natural infection. The Sheba Medical Center studied 150 healthcare workers who took a fourth shot of the Pfizer vaccine. That would be a second booster. They found the vaccine can't protect against infection from Omicron. The Israeli study found the second booster did increase antibodies, but they weren't at a level high enough to keep people from being infected with the Omicron variant. Though the lead researcher said the fourth shot may be good for some people.
It may give a little bit benefit, but probably not enough to support a decision to give all of the population, I would say.
A famous Belgian virologist made a prediction about the pandemic. He said it was going to enter a new phase in the spring and summer. That's due to the immunity of the population caused by a lot of vaccination and natural infection. He said this will make spring and summer look more like how it was before the pandemic.
I think we can hope that spring, summer will be more like they were before, with less of a COVID problem. Assuming there aren't more nasty variants, that could always happen. But I think we can relax for the summer. But I am already thinking about next winter.
A different expert, the man who co-discovered Ebola, said winter would bring several spikes in infection. In Europe, healthcare systems are struggling and there are record levels of COVID infections. In response, Europe has kicked off some of the world's most sweeping vaccine mandates. What comes with it are fines. Now, older people in Greece who have opted out can be fined monthly. People 60 years or older in the country who have not complied will be fined around $115 per month. This is a result of the government's effort to cut down on the number of deaths and hospitalizations of the vulnerable population. Vaccines are also mandatory for older people in Italy. That's for people over 50. Most unvaccinated people there are barred from public transportation, restaurants, and bars. Many institutions and jurisdictions have imposed vaccine mandates to protect public health, though some have challenged the mandates, saying they don't offer an option to claim natural immunity instead of getting the vaccine. Earlier, I spoke with former Professor Aaron Kheriaty, who served as the director of the Medical Ethics Program at the University of California, Irvine. The university fired him for not complying, and he later sued the school, saying it was unconstitutional. The judge threw the case out, saying there's no way for the school to determine who has natural immunity and who doesn't, but Kheriaty says the onus is on the individual to show that proof. He gives us an update on his lawsuit.
I've been fired from my job for not taking the vaccine, whereas someone who has immunity that is conferred by the vaccine, which is not as good as immunity conferred by a prior infection, is allowed back on campus and is allowed to continue to work. So unfortunately, at the district court level, we did not prevail, but we have filed an appeal because we think that ruling was incorrect.
Aaron, you lost your position as director in the medical ethics program over a medical ethics issue. Wouldn't that make you now more than ever want to be in that leadership position to educate students of the future?
Yeah, to be honest, Kevin, I do miss my contact with the students. So being away from teaching has been challenging. I think at a time like this, perhaps I can teach bioethics better by my actions than I can by my words in a lecture hall. And so I have had students and former residents reaching out to me and thanking me for the stance that I've taken and telling me that by doing what I've done, it's encouraged them to be more bold in their own actions or to stand up for their own convictions. And so, you know, we can teach by our words or we can teach by our actions. And I think at a time like this, it's very important that we try to do both. And I felt that if I didn't act, that my words would carry certainly less weight and less authority.
Well, let's look at an interview you did on the Epoch Times Crossroads program. I saw the headline and it said that you said that science is being weaponized to create a medical dystopia. Now that's quite a claim. Do you have any hard evidence to support that?
Yeah, so that was the headline, and that's an interpretation, and I think ultimately, if it's understood correctly, a fair interpretation of what I said in that interview. So 2 years ago, I think it would have been unimaginable to most Americans that they would have to show some sort of paperwork or some sort of electronic credentials to get on a plane, get on a train, go to a movie theater, or go to work in some cases. If our public health authorities, if private businesses, if the transportation industry or the basic infrastructure of society can bar our access to these very basic human goods of travel, of assembly and congregation, of access to food and other public venues. If that can be done, it's hard to imagine where that level of surveillance and control might stop.
Cariati's appeal was filed in the Ninth Circuit on January 3rd. It's unclear what the fate of his lawsuit will be. The court has ruled in favor of vaccine mandates before. Cariati says there is a way his case could end up in the Supreme Court. That's if the Ninth Circuit doesn't rule in favor, and there is a similar case in another circuit court that has an opposite ruling. That's called a split decision, in which case the Supreme Court would have to step in. This week, President Biden is expected to announce additional information about his plan to send high-quality masks to Americans for free. It comes as the CDC updates its mask mandate, recommending Americans wear the most protective mask or respirator they can find, just as the agency issues a warning on counterfeit N95 and KN95 respirators.
The highly transmissible Omicron variant has health officials recommending you upgrade your mask to an N95 or KN95.
It prevents not only you from spreading the virus, but also prevents you from becoming infected from Omicron.
But the growing demand is leading to online scammers targeting unsuspecting consumers and selling counterfeit high-quality masks. But how do you make sure your mask is real or fake?
It's an incredibly difficult market for consumers to navigate. There are hundreds of millions of these masks on the market in America right now that have no oversight. It's very dangerous.
The U.S. certifies N95s, while China approves KN95 masks. The CDC has issued a warning saying about 60% of N95 or KN95 masks on the market are counterfeit. Here's how to spot the fake respirators. 1. The N95s should have a NIOSH approval label, confirming that it meets the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health requirements, and it should be spelled correctly. The KN95 should not have a NIOSH label.
As a consumer, it's impossible to tell by looking at a respirator whether it's a performing respirator or not. They look identical.
2. It shouldn't have any decorative fabric or add-ons and should not make elaborate claims. 3. If the facepiece respirator has ear loops instead of headbands, that's a red flag. So, how long can you wear the masks? Health experts say with proper care, they can be reused for several days.
Here are some other red flags when it comes to masks. If it has no markings at all on the filtering facepiece mask, it's likely fake. Also, look for typos. See whether the sale listing has good grammar and takes you to the company website. The CDC also has updated its consumer mask website to include a list of approved and non-approved masks. Virginia's new governor, Glenn Youngkin, was sworn in over the weekend. He got to work immediately, signing 11 executive actions on his first day. We have more on the governor's key moves and 2 major investigations launched by the state's new attorney general.
Mr. Youngkin, are you prepared to take the oath of office?
Yes, I am.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin got straight to business on his first day as governor. After being sworn in on Saturday, he signed 9 executive orders and 2 executive directives. Youngkin, a Republican, fulfilled his campaign promise of prohibiting public schools from teaching critical race theory, which he described as an inherently divisive concept. He also lifted the mask mandate in Virginia schools and rescinded the vaccine mandate for all state employees. While Youngkin's first actions as governor are being applauded by supporters, they're also meeting with some resistance. 2 Virginia counties are signaling they won't comply with the governor's ban on school mask mandates. Officials in Arlington and Fairfax counties, as well as in the city of Alexandria, said their school districts will continue to follow CDC guidance and keep the mask requirement in place. Youngkin's order takes effect on January 24th. He told reporters over the weekend that he hopes the school districts will listen to parents, adding his administration will use every resource available to ensure parents' rights are protected. Meanwhile, Virginia's new Republican Attorney General, Jason Miyares, also announced major moves within hours of being sworn in. Miyares, a Cuban-American, said in a statement Saturday that his office has launched investigations into the Virginia Parole Board in Loudoun County Public Schools. Miyares explained that Virginians deserve answers. He wrote, The Virginia Parole Board broke the law when they let out murderers, rapists, and cop killers early on their sentences without notifying the victims. Loudoun County Public Schools covered up a sexual assault on school grounds for political gain, leading to an additional assault of a young girl. In addition, Miyares notified around 30 staff members they will no longer be employed by the Office of the Attorney General. His spokesperson said this was due to Miyares having very different visions for the office from the previous Attorney General.
Aviation may soon be in a catastrophic crisis. That's what the CEOs of major U.S. passenger and cargo carriers are warning, as AT&T and Verizon are set to deploy their new 5G service in less than 36 hours.
The airlines warned the new C-band 5G service set to begin on Wednesday could render a significant number of wide-body aircraft unusable, potentially stranding tens of thousands of Americans overseas and causing chaos for U.S. flights. The chief executives of American Airlines, Delta, United, Southwest, and others wrote in a letter first reported by Reuters. Unless our major hubs are cleared to fly, the vast majority of the traveling and shipping public will essentially be grounded. The FAA has warned that potential interference could affect sensitive airplane instruments such as altimeters, and significantly hamper low-visibility operations. Airlines late on Monday were considering canceling some international flights scheduled to arrive in the United States on Wednesday. The letter was also signed by UPS Airlines, Alaska Air, Atlas Air, JetBlue Airways, and FedEx Express. It added, "To be blunt, the nation's commerce will grind to a halt." On January 3rd, AT&T and Verizon agreed to buffer zones around 50 airports to reduce interference risks and take other steps to cut potential interference for 6 months. They also agreed to delay deployment for 2 weeks until Wednesday, after previously delaying service by 30 days. Verizon and AT&T argue C-band 5G has been successfully deployed in about 40 other countries without aviation interference issues. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Authorities have identified the suspect who was killed Saturday night after hostages were rescued from a Texas synagogue. But more questions remain about how the British national managed to enter the U.S. despite having a criminal record.
The British man who flew to the U.S., acquired a gun, and took hostages at a Texas synagogue, had mental health problems and a criminal record, according to his brother. The hostage taker, identified as 44-year-old Malik Faisal Akram from the UK, was killed Saturday evening after a tense 11-hour standoff at a synagogue in Calif, Texas. His brother on Monday questioned how Akram had been able to acquire a visa to enter the U.S. and even get a gun. He told Sky News that Akram was known to police and has a criminal record.
Really is very, very scary.
Dov Hikind is a former New York State Assemblyman and founder of Americans Against Anti-Semitism. He tells NTD the fact that the hostage taker was allowed into the U.S. shows there are real problems with our system.
Is it that easy to get into this country, regardless of who you are? I mean, what a beautiful message for terrorists. You know, it's not difficult to get into America and then plan and plot your acts of terror.
The FBI did not say how or when Akram had entered the U.S. Hikind also questions why authorities seem to have initially downplayed the event's connection to anti-Semitism.
And when you don't deal with it and you poo-poo it and it's okay, it's not really the Jews, that is really very, very dangerous.
The FBI first said in a press conference that Akram's act was not connected to the Jewish community. It later changed its assessment in statement, calling it terrorism targeting the Jewish people. Meanwhile, Rabbi Jeffrey Myers, head of the Pittsburgh synagogue that was targeted in a deadly anti-Semitic attack in 2018, says the incident impacts the Jewish community across the country.
There are ones who now think about, where do I sit? Do I sit right near the emergency exit? Where is there a pew that might be a safe place to hide behind?
Myers says there's no instant formula to comfort the community, but unity will help them get through the aftermath together.
The head of a pro-Israel group says Florida's state agriculture commissioner Nikki Fried should resign. This comes after Fried compared Governor Ron DeSantis to Adolf Hitler. Fried is running against DeSantis for governor of Florida. The president of the Zionist Organization of America, Morton Klein, said Freed's comments show that she has no business making decisions that impact the public. Freed made the comments during an interview with a local radio station last week. She has not directly addressed criticism since the interview. However, she posted on Twitter that DeSantis is a danger to the state, the country, and the world. She wrote that her followers can choose their own historical example that demonstrates her point. Florida's lieutenant governor responded by calling attention to DeSantis' accomplishments pertaining to Jews and Israel. DeSantis' press secretary urged Freed to visit the Holocaust Museum to reflect on how offensive her remarks were. A California ballot proposal would raise billions of dollars for electric cars and charging stations. The proposal calls for increasing taxes on high-income individuals and corporations to fund the program. NTD's David Lamb reports.
A new proposal would fund several billions of dollars to go green if it gets on California's ballot and passes. The Clean Cars and Clean Air Act would provide financial incentives for those wanting to buy electric vehicles or set up EV charging stations. The Clean Cars and Clean Air Act proposal was filed on December 13th to the Attorney General's office and would be funded in one of two ways. Anyone who has taxable income over $2 million would be taxed by 1.75% on the portion over $2 million. Or corporations with a net income over $20 million will be taxed 2.45% on the portion over $20 million. Banks and financial corporations are exempt. According to the Orange County Register, proponents of the proposal must raise over $2 million needed to gather 623,000 signatures by July 11th. The proposal states that the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions comes from transportation and wildfires, so part of the funds would go towards wildfire prevention and suppression. If passed, the new tax changes would begin on January 1st, 2023. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Twitter says it will expand a test feature allowing users to report posts for misinformation. It will now be available for users in Brazil, Spain, and the Philippines. The feature has been available as a pilot program in the United States, Australia, and South Korea since last August. It allows users to flag content they perceive as spreading misinformation. Twitter Safety said in a post that it has received around 3 million reports of misinformation from users. Twitter's official policy states content that is demonstrably false or misleading and may lead to significant risk of harm, such as increased exposure to the virus or adverse effects on public health systems, may not be shared on Twitter. The exact parameters of this policy are left for moderators and automated filters to decide. The expansion is particularly noteworthy because 2 of the 3 countries affected are scheduled for elections later this year. In both cases, a highly politicized conflict over misinformation may serve to benefit one political faction over another. America is facing a worker shortage in space. The watchdog for NASA says it is concerned the agency does not have enough astronauts for its future missions. The NASA Office of Inspector General released a report this month on the astronaut corps. It found this fiscal year NASA faces a shortfall in the number of astronauts it needs for missions, including trips to the International Space Station. The OIG partly blames the issue on the increase in space flights. The report warns if the issue isn't fixed, NASA faces crew disruptions and mission delays. Several days of freezing temperatures across Canada have caused disruptions, but some residents are making good use of the weather to help their kids get outside and get off electronic devices.
We started off with 2 houses. We've expanded to 3 now. We make it a little difficult for the mail carrier, I know that. They got to walk around the rink, but it's well used.
One family in Winnipeg celebrated the cold weather by playing hockey on an ice rink they created on their street. The rink spans the length of 3 houses. Temperatures have been so cold that parts of Lake Ontario near Toronto froze over the weekend. But Ducks were unfazed and made good use of the water. The inclement weather hits just as Ontario schools were set to open for in-person classes. The winter break had been extended because of the spread of the Omicron CCP virus variant. Up next, Shen Yun Performing Arts attracts audience all around the world. Even during the pandemic, people are waiting to see this show. So what makes this classical Chinese dance performance so special? Find out more after the short break.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but also millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all your support. At MyPillow, we have hundreds of products now, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We are offering the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regularly $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive these exclusive offers. Thank you and God bless.
Shen Yun has been performing since 2006. From one touring group to 7, each year around the world, it moves audiences. But what makes this classical Chinese dance so special? Let's find out.
The pandemic has left many feeling hopeless, depressed, and closed off from the outside world. But some have found healing in an unexpected place.
As being a physician, I had to use my hands and everything to get done and take care of my patients. Well, these performers use their bodies, their gestures, their fingers, their toes. They used every part of their body to heal us. What they did tonight was a form of medicine. It was a perfect prescription for joy and pageantry and beauty and honor and everything that's just good and magical right now, and we need it.
Dr. Lisa Miller practices internal medicine, and she believes the work of a physician is similar to an art.
Like I said, it's a perfect prescription for the pandemic. Anything that ails us right now, Shen Yun would take care of. After leaving here, I feel like everything's going to be just fine.
And she is not the only one.
Leaving this performance, I feel extremely peaceful. I feel healed to an extent.
It gave you hope. I'm telling you, they gave me hope.
Music is an age-old therapy. In ancient China, music and medical theory were even more closely connected. Chinese music is based on a pentatonic scale, 5 main notes which correspond to the 5 elements and respectively to the 5 major internal organs. In ancient China, music was not only a form of entertainment, but also a means of spiritual elevation. Refining one's character and seeking harmony with heaven were natural components of the artistic process. And Shen Yun's composers and musicians are aware of this, both in theory and in practice. The company's artists seek to do the same, reviving this tradition of self-refinement and cultivation in the arts. According to the Shen Yun website, the artists are all meditators and spiritual seekers. They strive to live by the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. NTD has covered Shen Yun since its inception, as it believes the company's mission is culturally historic. Year after year, audiences report the experience as a rejuvenating one, refreshing and even healing for the body, mind, and spirit.
I'm a retired military, and I'm 100% disabled, so I spend a lot of time in pain. So while I'm sitting in the seats, all of a sudden I came to the realization I wasn't feeling any more pain.
It left me with a very, very light feeling in my soul, and also gave me hope
which is very, very positive. We've been dealt with a lot of tragedy, death, and things that have been very dark. And here, coming to the show tonight, the message was just absolutely positive and radiant with such beauty that it brought your heart to be happy.
But what I found more insightful was the message, because our 21-year-old son just passed away last week, and the message told me that my son is in a better place. That was very meaningful to me. I'm leaving feeling better about my son's death. It minimized the pain that I was going through.
I find it almost like meditation, that it's very relaxing. My day-to-day is very stressful for the kind of work that I do, and I found that this was de-stressing my whole week.
When you walk out, you feel like all the worries have left you.
And I kid you not, like I feel, I'm sincere and earnest when I say that I walked out feeling like a weight lifted a little bit, and like I want to explore it more.
NTD News, New York.
Still to come, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators is in Ukraine. The trip aims to show American support for the country's sovereignty. This comes after talks to defuse tensions with Russia failed last week. Stay tuned to find out more.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. The highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritan green vegetable omega-3.
Scientists say that Tonga's massive underwater volcanic eruption could deliver long-lasting damage to coral reefs, erode coastlines, and disrupt fisheries.
The destruction from Tonga's massive underwater volcanic eruption is still being assessed, but scientists now warn that the damage could be long-lasting. The volcano has been releasing sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, two gases that create acid rain. This could damage crops, including staples like taro, corn, and bananas, which locals depend on. Geologist Marco Brenner has been studying the eruption's impact via satellite photos.
So a lot of that ash and gas will remain within the stratosphere for quite a number of weeks and possibly months, and kind of circulate across the globe. The more immediate impact on Tonga especially was the ash fall directly from the cloud, which blanketed most of the Tongan landscape in a few centimeters of ash from what has been seen of satellite images. And that basically had an impact, basically water, drinking water sources, on vegetation, grazing for animals, etc., because the volcanic ash is toxic.
And it may not just be Tonga. Much of the rain could land on Fiji. Underwater, fish are at risk. Tonga's livelihoods depend on the ocean, but ash from the eruption could be harmful to marine life. Murky, ash-filled water near the volcano will deprive fish of food and wipe out spawning beds.
Certainly fisheries are likely to have been impacted by for instance, the murkiness of the water. So the eruption would have produced quite a lot of suspended particle in the ocean water. So that might impact fishing grounds. Ash fall could also have such an impact and could potentially cause changes in ocean surface acidification.
Meanwhile, surviving marine life will be forced to migrate.
A group of U.S. senators are making an official visit to Ukraine. They arrived Monday in gesture of bipartisan support for the country's sovereignty. The visit comes after talks in both Europe and the United States failed to diffuse tensions last week between Russia and Ukraine.
Amid the looming threat of Russian invasion, 7 U.S. senators traveled to Kiev, capital of Ukraine. The bipartisan delegation held a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky and other top officials.
For us, for Ukraine, and for our people, it is very important that today you are standing with us.
The United States has been Ukraine's strongest supporter since Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its military buildup near the Ukrainian border. Speaking at a press conference after the meeting, Senator Richard Blumenthal reaffirmed U.S. support for the integrity of Ukraine's territory.
I think Vladimir Putin has made the biggest mistake of his career in underestimating how courageously the people of Ukraine will fight him if he invades.
He renewed Washington's commitment to providing military backup in the face of Russian aggression.
And we will impose crippling economic sanctions. But more important, we will give the people of Ukraine the arms, lethal arms, they need to defend their lives and livelihoods.
These weapons may include Javelin anti-tank missiles, Stinger missiles, small arms, and boats.
And so our message is there will be consequences if he chooses to violate the sanctity of this democracy.
Other Western allies echoed the message. British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace announced Monday that Britain has begun supplying anti-tank weapons to Ukraine. He noted that they're not strategic weapons meant to threaten Russia, but rather for use in self-defense. Canada's Global News also reported on the country's special forces operators that are stationed in Ukraine, calling their deployment part of NATO allies' efforts to assist Ukraine's government.
The U.S. Secretary of State will head to Ukraine this week as the country faces its latest Russian threat. According to the State Department, Secretary Antony Blinken will meet with Ukraine's president and foreign minister. This, as U.S. intelligence suggests Russia is preparing to invade the country and has tens of thousands of troops on the Ukrainian border. The State Department says Blinken will affirm America's commitment to Ukraine during the trip. He will also meet with Germany's foreign minister in Berlin to discuss recent diplomatic efforts with Russia. Germany's foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, is meeting with her Russian colleague in Moscow. She said Germany is ready to defend common values in the conflict with Russia over Ukraine. At a news conference after the meeting, the German official said that her country has no other option, even if the decision comes with a high economic price. She added that Berlin is ready to engage in serious dialogue with Russia, a move aiming to improve security for all Europeans. Baerbock voiced concerns about the buildup of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. She described the buildup as, quote, for no understandable reason, and said it's hard not to see this as a threat. What's more, she called on all sides to return to the negotiating table. According to the U.S. State Department, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will hold talks with Baerbock in Berlin following his meeting with Ukraine's leadership tomorrow. Ukraine's former president, Petro Poroshenko, returned to Kiev to face charges of treason, setting up a showdown some fear is a distraction from a possible Russian offensive.
Ukraine's former president, Petro Poroshenko, landed in Kiev on Monday to face treason charges, which he says were trumped up by allies of his successor, President Volodymyr Zelensky. His return sets up a showdown that critics see as an ill-judged distraction. Ukraine is currently bracing for a possible Russian military offensive and appealing to Western allies for support. In a brief standoff at border control after arriving on a flight from Warsaw, Poroshenko accused border guards of taking away his passport. Then he addressed flag-waving supporters outside the airport. The treason allegations relate to the financing of Russian-backed separatist fighters through illegal coal sales in 2014 to 15, while he was president. Western diplomats called for political unity in Ukraine ahead of Poroshenko's arrival. Poroshenko's party accused Zelensky of a reckless attempt to silence political opposition. Zelensky's administration says the prosecutors and judiciary are independent and accuses Poroshenko of thinking he is above the law. Ukraine and its allies have sounded the alarm about tens of thousands of Russian troops massed near its borders. After days of diplomacy last week achieved no breakthrough, the United States said Russia was preparing a pretext for an attack, something the Kremlin dismissed as unfounded.
Maltese lawmaker Roberta Metsola secured overwhelming support to become president of the European Parliament today. Metsola follows Italian socialist David Sassoli in the mostly ceremonial role presiding over the 705-member parliament. Sassoli died this month at age 65. Metsola, 43, defeated two other candidates. She secured 458 of the 616 votes in the first round, meaning no runoff rounds were required. A member of the European Parliament since 2013, Metsola campaigned as a student for Malta's inclusion as a member of the European Union. The Parliament adopts and amends legislative proposals and decides on the EU budget. French presidential candidate Eric Zemmour was fined more than $11,000 on Monday for inciting racial hatred. It's over remarks in which he called young migrants killers, thieves, and rapists.
Zemmour, a former political commentator, is competing with the more established candidate Marine Le Pen and conservative Valérie Pécresse to challenge President Emmanuel Macron in April's presidential election. The French court case concerned remarks he made on Channel C News in 2020 about migrants who arrive as unaccompanied children. He said, quote, "They've got no reason for being here. They're thieves, they're killers, they're rapists. That's all they do. They should be sent back." For several weeks last year, opinion polls indicated that Zemmour, who also has previous convictions for inciting racial hatred, had a chance of placing second in the presidential poll and facing Macron in a runoff. His campaign has since lost some steam and he now polls fourth. Zemmour said he would appeal the ruling. He stood by his 2020 comments, adding that the court was condemning him for expressing his views.
A Norwegian terrorist appeared back in court today, this time for a parole hearing. Prosecutors warn that even after 10 years in prison, the man is still dangerous. Anders Behring Breivik is a far-right activist. He raised his right arm in a Nazi salute as he entered the courtroom. He also held signs reading, "Stop your genocide of our white nations," and Nazi civil war. In a terrorist attack on Norway's capital Oslo in 2011, Breivik killed 8 with a car bomb and shot nearly 70 others, most of them teenagers. He was later sentenced to 21 years in jail, the maximum penalty under Norwegian law. Now, after serving the minimum 10-year sentence, the convict is eligible for parole. The prosecutor says he should remain behind bars. That's after Oslo's state prosecutor's office rejected his application for early release last year. And before that, while serving his sentence, Breivik stayed in a 3-room cell and was allowed access to a computer and video games. Yet he still sued prison authorities for what he called violating his human rights by keeping him in near isolation. He lost the case in 2017. Coming up, 2 newborn tiger cubs bring hope for an endangered species. Their arrival comes just ahead of what the Chinese zodiac dubs the Year of the Tiger. Find out more here on NTD News. According to the Chinese zodiac, the year of the tiger is approaching, but the creature is under threat in the wild. A breeding program in Russia's Far East now brings good news to an endangered tiger species. Let's take a look.
At the Primorsky Safari Park in Russia, the birth of 2 tiger cubs offers hope for the future of the Amur tiger family.
The tiger cubs are 6 months old, a little more than 6 months. Their mother's name is Yusuri.
The Amur tiger is an endangered species listed on the IUCN Red List of threatened species. Less than 4,000 of the animals currently exist worldwide. 3 of those adult tigers have made their home in this wildlife park. Each has a spacious enclosure the size of a soccer field. Standing on a bridge, visitors can observe these iconic Russian big cats. Once a week, keepers release game into the enclosures to preserve the tiger's hunting instinct.
If the Amur tigers ever disappear from nature, then the offspring of programmed tigers, including ours, will be returned to nature. For this purpose, we are preserving purebred Amur tigers.
Park staff say tiger poaching is rare, but poachers are taking the cat's prey, like deer and other hoofed animals, and with those numbers shrinking, the practice has become a threat to the tiger's food source. Many tigers arrive here after straying into populated areas and clashing with people or livestock.
These can be orphaned cubs, or tigers that receive various kinds of injuries, including gunshot wounds from poachers. Those who get into traffic accidents, tigers with deviations in behavior that get into residential places and attack domestic animals.
One tiger was brought to the center after breaking 3 of its paws. The keepers say it was the first wild tiger to undergo surgery at the facility. They hope the animal will be returned to the wild this spring. There are also plans to reintroduce the tigers to Kazakhstan, where the species is extinct in the wild.
It's very important not only to preserve them in the places where they live now, but also to return them to the places where they used to live before but were eliminated.
According to the World Wildlife Fund, the current population of Amur tiger stands at 600 in Russia. Across 9 years, 16 Amur tigers have been rescued and successfully released into their natural habitat.
A 3-legged lion, 2 tiger twins, and a dog were filmed playing together with a ball at a zoo in Siberia. The animals have been growing up together since July 2021. Fortis, the lion cub, had 1 leg amputated following a birth injury. The cub struggled to fully recover after the surgery at the zoo, so staff brought Elsa, a Labrador, to keep him company. Later, the zoo received a tiger called Lavanda as a present from Vladivostok. The cub arrived at the zoo together with her sister, Liana, and the animals became best friends after living together in the same premises. A man who discovered a very rare coin could see a big payday. The amateur metal detectorist found what is thought to be one of England's first gold coins. The Henry III gold penny was unearthed on farmland in Devon. It was minted in about 1257. It's one of only 8 such coins known to exist, many of which are in museums. The man who found the coin wants to remain anonymous. He didn't realize how valuable it was until he posted a photograph of the penny on Facebook. It was spotted by an expert who was in disbelief at the find. The pre-sale estimate by British auctioneer Spink & Son in London is around $546,000. And a famous auction house says it thinks this rare black diamond is from out of this world, literally. Sotheby's unveiled this fancy black diamond called the Enigma as part of its luxury sale series. The gem's origin is a mystery, but officials believe it was either created after a meteoric impact or from a diamond-bearing asteroid that collided with Earth. The diamond is 555.5 carats. It was listed as the world's largest cut diamond in the 2006 Guinness Book of World Records. Sotheby's expects the diamond to be sold for at least $6.8 million. The auction house plans to accept cryptocurrency as a possible payment as well. Bidding starts next month. Winter increases the risks for people with heart problems, so let's get some tips on how to stay safe and warm. Here's Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. The winter can be hard on your heart. Cold temperatures literally make things harder for your heart. If you have heart disease, winter can pile on risk like a fresh snowfall. Some experts suggest that winter creates the perfect storm for heart problems. Simply put, cold weather puts more stress on your body. It's harder to walk around on snow and slush-filled streets, and the extra effort may tax you more than you'd realize. Two things can boost your risk of a heart attack. One is increased heart rate of carrying yourself from place to place. Combine that with the natural effect of cold temperature on your circulatory system. Cold temperatures can decrease the supply of oxygen-rich blood to the heart, even though you need more of it as you're working harder. Blood vessels constrict and the heart needs to rev up to meet the body's demand. People with heart disease will often feel chest pain or discomfort in cold temperatures, and it can be alarming. When this happens, it's best to take a break from whatever you are doing and sit down, especially if you are performing strenuous activities such as shoveling, which also poses a seasonal risk for cardiovascular events. To give yourself the best chance of getting through a cold winter without a cardiovascular event, there are a few things you can do. The first is to take your time with the added physical demands. Sit down for a break when shoveling or take your pace down a notch while walking. Avoid alcohol immediately before or after outdoor activity. If you warm up with a hot toddy, make sure about 30 minutes has passed following the labour. Also, it's important to be aware of hypothermia. Even if you're feeling quite warm, don't remove your jacket when outdoors. In fact, put your hat, scarf and gloves on before going outside. Hypothermia can sneak up on you, so be sure to dress warmly. Wearing removable layers is the best way to maintain a comfortable temperature and reduce the risk of hypothermia. Wear warm, breathable layers that can easily be reapplied when the cold sets in. Being aware of the season's effect on your body can help you to stay safe this season. And with all the threats working against you, every little bit helps.
Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.